It doesn't just look like a Ranger with a canopy stuck on the back. It's all a very cohesive design. Simple, resilient, easy to use, easy to clean. This nails that criteria.
Are these just destined to ever rest in a workshop waiting for repairs?
The drive itself, it feels far more expensive than it is. Now, these are hugely popular, but they're also accused of all sorts of reliability issues. What actually does go wrong with them? How are they aging? What do they like to live with and drive? Most importantly, should you ever seriously consider buying one? I'll tell you what, how about we answer all of those questions and so many more. But first of all, just a quick reminder of the important stuff. First of all, the Everest that we're going to be focusing on in this video is the 2015 to 2022 UA and UA2. Why UA and UA2? Well, Ford updated the Everest in 2018. They added a more powerful and more efficient 2-litre bi-turbo diesel 4-cylinder to the previously available 3.2-litre turbo diesel 5-cylinder. Ford also tweaked the Everest 3 other times during the life cycle, so it's safe to say pretty much everything has received some attention. Tech and equipment were updated, aesthetics were subtly changed, even suspension and driving calibrations were improved. Now, the vast majority of Everests on the used market will be all-wheel drive, and they feature a whole host of different off-roading hardware and software. Although from 2016, a rear-wheel drive variant was made available. And speaking of variants, pre-update, you're going to have 3 to choose from. Post-update, there are 4, although what these all feature will vary depending on the mechanical package. Besides that, the Everest is a 7-seater. It shares a whole host of components with the Ford Ranger. It's based on the Ford Ranger, and pricing kicks off from around about $20,000 and tops out at around about $70,000. And chances are, if you are in the market for one of these, you're probably going to be looking for finance. To get the very best finance deal, click the driver link down below. That link will take you through the incredibly easy process. It will explain all of the details, and if you do secure your finance via that link, we're going to give you $150 worth of free fuel. Now, here's a fun fact. Just like the Ranger, these are built in Thailand, although they were designed and engineered here in Australia. And I tell you what, I for one think that we did a pretty bloody good job when it comes to the looks. And I'm clearly not alone, because these were a sales success, and it might be down to the fact that it doesn't just look like a Ranger with a canopy stuck on the back. It's all a very cohesive design. Although the looks can vary just a little bit depending on the trim spec and whatever accessories are fitted. And as far as what features and equipment you get, even the base models like this do get a good amount of kit, but obviously the higher up the food chain you go, the more stuff you're going to get. Now, if you do need all the specific details of which model gets what sort of stuff, jump on ReDriven.com and check out the Everest's free cheat sheet. It'll answer all of your questions. Although there are a few complaints with the exterior, like rust and electronic issues, but we're going to get into all of that in more detail in the What Goes Wrong section of this video. Now, as far as features go inside, good news if you want Bluetooth connectivity, all of these have them. However, if you want Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you're going to need to find an Everest with Ford's Sync 3 infotainment system fitted. That means Trend and Titanium models post-September 2016 and Ambiente models post-April 2017. Also, if it's not Sync 3, it's going to be Sync 2, and it is really feeling its age these days. Elsewhere, you're going to get all of the features that you'd expect, but there are a few highlights. All Everests feature noise cancellation technology. It's the same as the noise cancellation that you get in certain headphones. We're going to see if that technology still works when we drive it in a moment. Parents of P-platers are going to love this one. The Titanium and Trend models come with a programmable My Key. This allows you to limit the top speed, it deactivates the sound system until the seatbelts are plugged in, and it stops you deactivating any of the safety technology. And if you're a shit driver, the Titaniums come with Active Park Assist, and that basically allows you to execute near perfect parallel or reverse parks. The Titanium also features the schmanciest of Everest interiors. It's not ultra premium SUV levels, but pretty bloody good for something that's based on a ute. This is a 2017 base spec Ambiente. Yeah, it's fine. It's not terribly disappointing, but it's also not amazingly impressive. It's kind of, here's the interior of an SUV. It exists. Although, how annoying is that? That would infuriate me. It is infuriating me. As you'd expect for a base model, there are loads of hard plastics everywhere. It's a little more obvious that this does share its DNA with the work ute, but all the switchgear is really solid. But as a family hauler, surely this is what you want. Simple, resilient, easy to use, easy to clean. This nails that criteria. Actually, just on wear and tear, obviously every Everest is going to be different in wear and tear from example to example. This has over 190,000 Ks on it. Wear and tear is fantastic. The seats, like the fabric, even the squidge and the bolsters are still quite firm. Door cards, everything that you touch and use, and you know, the high traffic areas, all in excellent condition. Even the ergonomics, the seats are really comfortable. There's a good amount of adjustability. Everything that you need to touch is within easy reach. Nice place to be, nice place to exist. But it is a family hauler, so it needs to be practical. Is it? Here we go. Really good sized glove box there. You've got a spot perfectly designed for your phone just here with 2 USB charging ports, a couple of cup holders here, and this is removable so it's easy to clean. Got an armrest with a little cubby hole under there. Excellent sized door bins, easily fit a big water bottle there. That's for fuses, that's not storage. Spot for sunglasses up here, and a little tray on top of the center console here. I think in later models there's a USB charging port there as well for your dash cam. And I think that's it for practicality up front, nothing under the seats. No. Now in the back seat, I'm exactly 0.021% of the height of Mount Everest. This is in my driving position. Excellent back here, great amount of knee room, good amount of foot room. The seats are really comfortable. Glass house is quite large, so it feels airy and spacious. Pop the headrest up, it's even more comfortable. Really great back seats. Plus you can also recline the seats for even more comfort. Wear and tear back here, like the front, I don't know if anyone's actually sat back here. I mean, over 190,000 Ks, it feels like a new car. And then practicality in the back seat, you've got a couple of map pockets. You've got a 240 volt outlet here, a 12 volt power outlet here, your own air conditioning controls for the rear seat air conditioning, excellent sized door bins, and a pull down armrest with a slidey-arty pair of cup holders. And then in the third row, don't go expecting people mover levels of comfort back here. It is very cramped, plus the seats are incredibly upright, so you feel like you're sitting in textbook classroom position. Also, the windows are quite small, so it does feel quite claustrophobic back here. Wear and tear in this particular example, again, no surprises. Feels like no one's ever sat back here. And then practicality in the third row, you've got your own cup holders and your own air vents. And then in the boot, this is the issue with 7-seat SUVs when all 3 rows are in operation, the lack of cargo space. If you're planning on buying a 7-seat SUV and using the third row all the time and need cargo space, just buy a people mover instead. However, with the third row stowed away, there is a great amount of space back here. Although some owners have complained that this isn't completely flat. There's a few undulations. That's annoying. But then with the second row folded down, again, it's like a little van, huge amounts of space. We've said this before about Falcons and Commodores and even Hyundais and Kias. There's just something about the driving experience of cars that are engineered for our conditions. And even after all of these years and nearly 200,000 kilometers, you can tell that this was engineered for our conditions. It does everything that you'd want a vehicle like this to do. The first thing that hits you is the levels of refinement. Maybe it's the noise cancellation technology, maybe it's the immense amount of sound deadening, but you just feel so isolated from the outside world. I mean, the drive itself, it feels far more expensive than it is. Also, the ride quality and the handling are excellent. Of all of the, let's say, ute-based 7-seat SUVs, this feels by far the most sorted. Even this engine, it's not quite as impressive as the 2-litre that's available in the later models of these, but still has plenty of urge. It's really muscular. The transmission as well, it never feels confused or out of its depth until you go towing something in the middle of summer, but we'll delve into that more deeply when we get to the what goes wrong section. Also on the fuel efficiency, it's not too bad. This is claimed to return 8.5 litres per 100 Ks. What it's actually seeing is a smidge over 10, and that seems to be about the average for most owners. You could easily soak up thousands and thousands of kilometers in this in complete comfort. Now, even off-road, these things can shine. There are plenty of YouTube videos proving that. But let's talk negatives. First of all, it does feel big. It doesn't hide its size at all well. Some of the parameters can be a bit challenging to judge where they are, so fitting into a tight parking spot can require confidence. Also, the steering feel, it's very light and vague, but this isn't a performance car. If the steering is what's putting you off, stop being so picky. Other than that, this is still a bloody impressive thing to drive. But what about safety features? Well, it's pretty good news here. ANCAP did award it a 5-star safety rating back in 2015. But to take you through the safety features, how about I tell you from the summit of Mount Everest?
Okay, so the Everest will come with 7 airbags, including airbags for the third row, ABS, traction and electronic stability control, including roll stability control and trailer sway control. Later and higher spec models, like the one down there, then feature adaptive cruise control, forward collision warning, lane departure warning, and a driver alert system. Then, many UA2 examples will feature autonomous emergency braking and traffic sign recognition. But for all the specific details, again, head to ReDriven.com and check out the cheat sheet.
Okay, now to the really serious stuff. What goes wrong with these? We're going to start with the exterior, and the first thing we need to talk about is rust. There are a number of reports regarding rust in the doors, in the bonnet and the boot, so be on the lookout for any bubbling or any uneven paint, especially in the seams. Now, as far as fixing this, some owners have been really lucky and their Ford dealership have replaced panels and resprayed things under warranty. Other owners with their dealerships haven't been so lucky. Some Ford dealerships are apparently saying, oh, we've never heard of this before. That is complete bullshit. Put some pressure on the dealership, make them fix it. Actually, before you get in touch with the Ford dealer, jump on some of the owners groups, especially Everest Group Australia, because there's a thread on there regarding this rust issue and it is phenomenal. Actually, just on those owners groups, a massive thank you guys for helping us research and make this video. Without you, we couldn't have made this video. Also, like plenty of other cars, worn out wiper blades are just bloody dangerous. Luckily, Wiper Tech has you covered. Guys, the blades are easy to order online, they're easy to fit, they're shipped to your door, also for free via that link, and you're gonna get 15% off, and they are genuinely some of the best wiper blades we've ever used. Next up, we have electronic gremlins, and most common is the powered tailgate. Apparently these things can be possessed by demons, either not opening, not closing, closing when they're starting to open, all sorts of issues. Now, fixing this can be an absolute bloody nightmare. Some owners have found that replacing the module fixes it, other owners have found that doesn't work at all. Again, jump on the owners groups, there are plenty of threads on there, heaps of advice. Also, there are a few sporadic reports of windows not working, powered mirrors having issues. Basically, if it has electricity running to it, just make sure it works properly. That also goes for any accessories fitted. Make sure the accessories all work and make sure they've been fitted professionally. You'd be amazed at how many people that buy full drives loaded with kit and half the stuff doesn't even work. Now inside, the big complaint is about plastic trim, especially these door handles here. Some of them are painted and the paint is just peeling and scratching off really easily. Some owners have had this fixed under warranty, other owners have had to go to a panel beater to get it completely resprayed. There are some really good tutorials on the owners groups about how to do it yourself, but just disappointing. Then a few owners have had issues with the door handles themselves breaking. The issue here is, unless you're incredibly proficient when it comes to do-it-yourself projects, to fix this requires the entire door card being replaced because the mechanism is plastic welded to the inside of the door card. It is possible to replace just the door handle, but it does require a certain level of skill and free time. Also on the door handles, with the ones that are coated in a chrome finish, some owners have complained that they're really sharp. In fact, some people have actually cut themselves on the door handle and the chrome finish is starting to bubble and peel off. Again, like the rust issue, that should be covered under warranty. And unfortunately, the interior doesn't escape electronic gremlins as well. Apparently the 240 volt inverter can have some issues and occasional switchgear can play up. Not common, but. Now before we get into the mechanical stuff, we've got to talk about dealership experiences. Some owners have had great times, others have had complete disasters. Even for me, I used to own a Fiesta ST and my dealership experience, one dealership was an absolute nightmare. The next, they couldn't have been more professional and they fall under the same dealership banner. But speaking of fantastic dealerships, a massive thank you to MVAA Vehicle Wholesale for lending us this Everest. You guys are legends. I should mention, this Everest is for sale. Click on the link down below. Anyway, look, mechanically, what can go wrong with these things? I'm really sorry, guys. I can't tell you because I'm not a qualified mechanic, but Jim certainly is.
I'll start with a 3.2 diesel. Look, the big problem here is basically just engine failures. And quite often that is attributed to a failed EGR cooler. It's a really common problem. Basically what happens, the EGR cooler just leaks, you lose all your coolant and the thing overheats and doesn't actually give you a warning, it just overheats and it's dead. So the EGR cooler becomes a service part. The best advice there is do it every 100,000 Ks just to be safe. Now that's all well and good, but it's in a very difficult spot to access. In some cases, the best way to access it is to take the gearbox out to change it, which is a huge pain in the ass and expensive. Now, on that EGR problem, some owners choose to put in an EGR delete, which definitely does bypass the problem, but it's important to know that is actually very much illegal and very much frowned upon by the authorities. If you are unlucky enough to own one and the engine blows up, look, it's expensive. Some, are covered under warranty if they're new enough. You can get secondhand replacements. They're expensive and hard to get. There's refurbished options too, but they are all expensive, and in some cases you can wait a while to get one. Another issue you should look out for is the drive belt and the drive belt tensioner, and it's a good tip to just consider that a service part as well. Don't wait till it fails and destroys the belt and everything around it. At about 80 or 100,000 Ks maybe, put a drive belt and a drive belt tensioner on it. They also have turbo complications. Now a bunch of things happen with those, but typically it's just a whole replacement turbo. Again, not cheap. They also have issues with their turbo pipes. Often they split open as well. That's a pretty simple and easy one and relatively cheap too, but it happens pretty commonly. Another common problem you need to look out for, there's a section of the wiring harness that comes across the front of the engine. Now that wiring harness rubs on the top of the timing cover, and when it rubs, obviously the wires short out and the car stops and has a whole lot of problems. It's a really easy fix, just take the engine cover off. You'll see it, just put some insulation around it with a few zip ties and you'll never have a problem with it. The other one with these, if you are servicing it at home, we've talked about this before with Rangers, you just have to do it quickly. Don't let the sump sit for any more than 10 minutes empty because they have a variable displacement oil pump and it doesn't like to prime itself. So drain it, refill it, do it all within 10 minutes. You should be fine. Now onto the 2-litre bi-turbo. Look, did you know that these things actually have a timing belt? It's a wet belt that runs in oil. Yeah, they do. Now in Everest, there hasn't been a whole bunch of catastrophic failures or belt complications yet. But this engine, in other applications like the transit van, for example, they are having issues. It's actually a thing. What happens there is the belt deteriorates. It doesn't often break catastrophically, but that belt, when it deteriorates, all those little fragments go into the sump and they are sucked up into the oil pump pickup, which blocks it up and you lose oil pressure, which can subsequently destroy an engine. If you catch it in time, you can just take the sump off and clean out the strainer and you're right, but not often is it actually caught in time. Other problems we're seeing with these are the AdBlue system. Sometimes the injector fails, sometimes the heating element can fail, and other times it can be the level calibration. Problem there is if the car thinks it's out of AdBlue, it doesn't go. So if you're having any AdBlue issues whatsoever, get them sorted out. Again, like the 3.2, these things have intercooler pipe issues. They just split open, typically easy to fix and not too expensive. They do also have their fair share of DPF complications. Sometimes that is connected to the AdBlue system. Other times the DPF just clogs up on its own, especially if you're using the wrong oil. Quite often it really just needs a forced regeneration and that gets it all sorted out. Now, both of these engines, the 3.2 and the 2-litre, do benefit greatly from a catch can, highly recommended. The problem there is a lot of dealerships are saying that voids your warranty. If it's under warranty, you don't want to have a catch can on there when it's at the dealership, if you know what I'm saying. But if it's out of warranty, definitely put a catch can on it. And just talking about dealerships and warranty, look, just keep in mind, a dealership might have a problem with just about any modification you do with this. You like any excuse to void your warranty, right? And these do have a few problems, so you might want to consider that. If you're going to modify it, just think about the effect that has on your warranty. Another common issue, nothing to do with the engines, is in the park brake on these things. They're like a small drum inside the rear disc rotor. They are shit and they wear out terribly. Now, park brake should never actually wear out because it never really is getting applied while the car's moving, right? Well, the problem here is the slightest bit of muddy water that gets in those things, it just destroys the brake shoes and you have to replace it. So, you know, either stay off dirt roads and creek crossings or put up with no handbrake. Now, the transmissions, the 6R80 6-speed, look, they have plenty of problems too. A lot of those stemming from valve body issues and overheating complications. The torque converter has internal problems and external problems. One of the external problems is the whole drive coupling off the front of it just shears off and you have no drive. Now, a lot of these overheating issues can be helped with an aftermarket cooler, which is highly recommended. Not even if you're towing, just if you have one, put a bigger cooler on it. And there's another mod you can do. It's a thermal bypass valve for the oil cooler. That just gets the oil flowing sooner through the oil cooler. Highly recommended. Now the 10-speed, is it any better? Well, it's newer, but it does still have plenty of problems. Again, torque converter complications and valve body issues, a lot of overheating problems as well. But most commonly, there's a problem in the part called the CDF drum. That's basically the clutch drive part of the automatic transmission. There's a bush in there that just spins on its axis and then blocks up oil ports. Now, no amount of servicing or software updates is going to fix that, right? Forget it. The gearbox has to come out, it has to be stripped down and overhauled, or replaced if it's under warranty in some cases. Again, with the overheating issues, the 10-speed too benefits greatly from a much bigger cooler. Now, the transmission servicing, the recommended service schedule for these is, wait for it, 240,000 Ks or 10 years, which is hilarious. The irony is too that if you wait for 240,000 Ks to service, well, it is definitely not going to last that long. So if you want it to last, really, just service it every 40,000 Ks or every couple of years, or even more frequently if you're towing heavy loads. But overall, one of the biggest problems you might have could be from the previous owner, or the modifications done by the previous owner, or the way the vehicle has been treated by the previous owner. So heads up, if you're looking at one and it's got modifications, just make sure they've all been done properly by a reputable company with good quality parts, and just try to get an idea if it's been looked after. Have a good look at the service history, make sure the service history is faultless, and obviously hasn't been owned by a dickhead.
Now, we know this all sounds like a massive disaster, but it is critical to remember the vast majority of Everest owners adore their Everest. We've spoken to so many and they all love their vehicle. Most of them have never and probably will never have an issue. But these issues, they do happen. And that then brings us to the big question, should you buy one of these? If you were to buy one, you need to find what we call the Goldilocks Everest. Here's the criteria that will hopefully reveal that mystical creature. Go hunting for an example with the lowest mileage possible, the least amount of owners, the most recent example possible. It must have a full and thorough service history. It has had any of the common faults fixed under warranty. It is critical that it passes a pre-purchase inspection. It hopefully has a catch can fitted. Avoid any that are heavily modified. Avoid any that have been used extensively off-road, and avoid any that have spent extensive time towing. And if you find an Everest that ticks all of those boxes, yeah, buy it. It could be an interesting ownership experience, but can be a really good thing. However, if all of this is a bit too much for you, maybe you should check out one of these instead. If you weren't to buy this or that, what would you buy? Let us know in the comments. See you next time. Post update, technically, everything that you touch is a bit, slow down.
All the previous owners treating them like complete dickheads. No, you don't treat your car like a dickhead. I'm going to do that again.